The Walking Dead has totally forgotten one unfinished Daryl Dixon storyline. While The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon continues the fan-favorite hero's journey, it seems to have forgotten an unfinished storyline from the main show. It has become a bit of a habit for The Walking Dead spin-offs to drop arcs from the main series or other shows, and Daryl Dixon is clearly no exception. With Daryl, Norman Reedus, now in France, he's crossed paths with an entirely different cast of people. One of the key survivors he meets is Isabel, Clemens Posey, a former nun who may act as a love interest for Daryl. In exploring this route, the spin-off would completely disregard a previous storyline. Romance plots are common in The Walking Dead, with many main characters finding themselves in relationships throughout the 11 seasons. Notably though, Daryl seemed to be one character who had very little in terms of romantic connections during the show. There were plenty of potential perfect love interests that never happened for Daryl, but the furthest it ever went with that was Leah Shaw, a short-lived season 11 character. Interestingly, Daryl Dixon episode 2 featured an exchange where Daryl commented that there was room enough in the bed for both he and Isabel, which is just the sort of cliched setup that could lead to something more down the line. To the setting up Daryl and Isabel forgets about Connie. Admittedly, Daryl does deserve happiness, but a romance with Isabel and Daryl Dixon would dismiss a potential unfinished love story. Connie's, Lauren Ridloff, relationship with Daryl never turned romantic, but there was a genuine connection between the two that a Daryl-Isabel romance would overshadow. Daryl showed on numerous occasions how much he cared about Connie. From making the extra effort to communicate given her disability, to how upset he was when she was presumed dead, it is obvious Connie meant a lot to him. A relationship with Isabel would completely disregard the buildup between Daryl and Connie. It would prevent him from having a truly meaningful relationship in the post-apocalyptic world with someone who brings out the best in him. Why Walking Dead shouldn't make Daryl and Isabel a romantic couple outside of Connie, there are other key reasons The Walking Dead shouldn't make Daryl and Isabel a romantic couple. The chances of one of the first people Daryl meets in France becoming a love interest is extremely convenient. Given Isabel was also one of the few people who survived the fight in the first episode, a relationship almost becomes too predictable. Important characters often have a layer of plot armor, and while this is no different in The Walking Dead, having such an obvious love storyline would cheapen whatever arc they share. Daryl has also been known to close people off, making this relationship all the less realistic. This reserved side of Daryl is part of the reason he hasn't had any real relationships and why Connie still suits him best. Another reason this relationship shouldn't happen is it complicates Daryl's intention to go back to the US. With The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon renewed for season 2, he will likely be staying in France for a while yet, but having the motivation to go home helps drive the story. If he ends up finding romance in France, he may have doubts about going home and reuniting with the rest of the group. This would prevent future Walking Dead storylines involving Daryl, and therefore, giving the franchise further reasons to make Isabel only a temporary part of Daryl's life.